Welcome to the Swiftly Spoken Year-End Recap and Awards. We are your hosts, Lisa and Cameron, and we're very excited to be ending the year by taking a look back at Taylor's 2021, as well as announcing our very first Swiftly Spoken Awards, voted by you. In today's episode, we're going to be celebrating Taylor's amazing year by recapping all of the awards she's won, all of her varied releases from 2021, her re-recordings, and also the few performances. After that, we're going to be announcing the winners of our very first ever Swiftly Spoken Awards that were voted by you guys over on our Instagram, and you've all chosen your favorite Taylor album of the year, performance of the year, songs from the different vaults, collaborations, and much more. We'll be closing off this last episode of the year by talking about the things that are coming up next year. What is going on in 2022 for Taylor?
Okay, so first we're going to start off by discussing the albums that were released in 2021. Even though Evermore was not released in 2021, it did actually spend 3 weeks at number 1 on the Billboard 200 charts this year. So 2 of these weeks at number 1 were actually spent during January, a month after Evermore's release. And the other number 1, Evermore's number 1, was due to the vinyl records being finally sent out to fans and being available in stores in June. So it was really exciting for Evermore to kind of have another moment at number 1 and another kind of week or so of recognition. Because like we discussed in our previous, one of our previous episodes about Evermore, it never really got its kind of moment in comparison to Folklore. And how do you feel about it finally kind of having a bit more time at number 1 to properly kind of be recognised and discussed and have the recognition that it kind of deserves?
I definitely feel very happy for it to have that recognition and to have had that amazing week in June where Taylor even came out and promoted it. The vinyl sales were absolutely amazing. They actually broke the record for most vinyl sales in a week back in June, which was then again broken by Taylor afterwards with the Red release. But yeah, it was nice for Evermore to have its moment because, as you said, its era was kind of cut short. This is something that we spoke about a couple of episodes ago. But yeah, it was nice to see it really get a bit of spotlight during this year as well.
Yeah, and Taylor obviously posed with the record itself and posted a photo of herself led in kind of grass on her Instagram, which was quite nice because it is quite rare for Taylor to post photos of herself nowadays holding the record or the CDs. So yeah, it was nice to see that even she was really promoting it, which obviously is something that didn't happen towards the end of the year. Evermore kind of had another little moment in 2021.
Firstly, we had Fearless, Taylor's version. So this was the first re-recording that introduced us to how she was going to reclaim her masters. It included many surprises, for example, the From the Vault songs and the new collaborations and how it was rolled out and promoted. It was all very new to us and it introduced us to what the re-recording era is going to be. Fearless, Taylor's version, really set the tone for the re-recording era by becoming the first ever re-recorded version of a previous number 1 album to once again become a number 1. It also, at that time, had the biggest debut week in 2021. So, Cameron, how did you feel about Fearless being the opener to this re-recording era?
I was really happy that Fearless was kind of the first. And I think initially lots of people were slightly unsure because they felt like maybe we would get them in album order. And I think before the re-recording started to be released, that's kind of how I wanted them. I was like, no, I want them to be in the order that they're released. I want the singles, I want the lead single to be the lead single that it was for the original kind of album release. But actually, I'm really glad that we started with Fearless. I think Fearless was a perfect kind of album to have as the opener. One, because obviously it has kind of 2 of Taylor's biggest hits with Love Story and You Belong With Me. Also, and also because it was kind of the album that really introduced Taylor to everyone. It was kind of her breakthrough album. Obviously, it was album of the year at the Grammys. And it was just kind of, it was her breakthrough and is kind of, and I think a lot of people have a lot of kind of very special memories with the Fearless album. So I think it was great in terms of general public because there were songs on there that the general public knew well and are, big songs even nowadays, but also because of the kind of connection that fans have with the album. So I was really glad that Fearless was the first re-recorded album.
It was an amazing way to kind of present one of her biggest projects because obviously it had a lot of weight to it. It was very important for Fearless, Taylor's version, to do well because if it didn't do well, it would bode badly for the rest of the re-recording albums. And at that point, some people were kind of skeptical about the undertaking of re-recording and re-releasing music. So I'm really glad that she chose Fearless. As you said, it has songs that are known by almost everyone: Love Story, You Belong With Me, massive radio hits. And at the same time, it has a lot of nostalgia for hardcore fans. So I think she did a really good job at choosing Fearless as the beginning.
And also, how did you feel, obviously, about the Fearless Taylor's version cover? Because the cover and the lead single Love Story were released a couple of months before we kind of got the full album. What was your initial opinion of?
When I first saw it, I have to say it's hard to find something new and love it as much as you love the original because you're so used to the original. So it was hard for me at the beginning because I'm not sure how I felt about it. I did like the golden look to it. I really liked how it was all coloured, and I thought the rest of the albums were all going to follow kind of like that colour scheme. So I did like that, but it was difficult for me to get my head around that this was going to be the new cover. But I do think she did a good job at recreating the feeling of Fearless. How about you?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think, again, where we've never obviously really, I've never, none of my favorite artists have ever re-released albums or re-recorded them. So I've never really had to kind of, other releases would all have that kind of color. They would be, yeah, kind of one color of like, so Speak Now would be purple and Red would just have a red kind of tinge over it, which would have been quite cool. But I'm actually glad that she didn't stick with that because then it kind of sets them apart. It makes the albums
Yeah.
kind of not, otherwise they would just kind of all look, they would look quite weird in comparison to like up against, say, Folklore and Evermore and Lover, because obviously they don't follow that kind of pattern. So I'm glad that in the end she didn't. But no, I do really love the cover now, and do prefer it to the original. But I do understand where you're coming from about, yeah, it was quite unusual having a new cover for something that you've known the cover of since 2008. And also, how did you feel about Fearless's rollout? Because obviously we'll get onto this later, but Red and Fearless's rollout was very different. With Fearless, obviously we got the cover and then a lead single as such with the release of Love Story and the lyric video, and then later on down the line we got You All Over Me and then Mr. Perfectly Fine, and then we got the full album, whereas with Red obviously we just got the full album on its release day. So how did you feel about the rollout? And
Yeah, the two rollouts are definitely very different, and I think that's what will make the re-recording era, so to speak, again, an interesting one, because we don't really know what to expect now. So I'm glad that she did do two very different things. In terms of Fearless's rollout, yeah, it was crazy how we got Love Story quite early on, and then we had to wait for a little while, and then we got like this scattering of from the vault songs and stuff. I think releasing Love Story before was an amazing idea because again it enticed people into checking out what was going on. It kind of introduced people to the whole situation, and again the nostalgia of Love Story is just incredible. Like I don't think there's so few people that don't know that song or know of it. So I think she really chose well when it came to releasing that first, getting people interested, making them understand what was going on, and then finally releasing the album. How did you feel about it?
yeah, no, I agree. I totally agree with what you say. I think that, yeah, the rollout was nervousness, I think, maybe to the rollout of unsure of how people would react. Obviously, re-recorded albums, people have heard them before. It's that kind of thing of, would people go mad for this? So I think that they were quite tentative, possibly, with let's put Love Story out first, let people kind of digest that and see how that kind of builds, and then slowly we'll give people kind of things of the vault to show them what they might hear, and then get the full album. Whereas with Red, they were like, no, you're getting it all at once, because she realized that the reaction was so positive to Fearless. The initial rollout for Fearless was really cleverly thought out and was quite nice. It did feel quite long having to wait after Love Story before kind of we got the full album, but then Red was even longer and we had absolutely nothing to go off of, really.
Yeah, I was about to say to you, that's nothing in comparison
to Red.
to what happened to Red. Yeah,
because obviously we only got like the I Knew You Were Trouble and 22 snippets, and then obviously we got a Red snippet, and that was kind of all we really had.
that was it.
So no, it is interesting, but no, I did quite like that we got Love Story first. Again, that's the Love Story is the song that I discovered Taylor Swift through, and that was the first kind of Taylor Swift song I'd ever heard. So I think that it was quite nice for that to be the start, and I think that's the same for a lot of the fans. Love Story is the first Taylor Swift song they ever heard, and or the song that made them realize, oh, I want to be a Taylor Swift fan. So I think it was really nice, and like you said, a lot of nostalgia to that song.
So of course, moving on from the first re-recorded album to the second re-recorded album and the second album that we've got this year from Taylor, which is of course Red, Taylor's version, released just over a month ago now. It was very different to Fearless's rollout, as we've mentioned, and it included how Fearless was promoted, but at the same time created just as much hype. Was you more excited, just as excited? And how did you feel about the re-recording in general?
No, I was really, really excited for Red. Red is my kind of favorite Taylor Swift album. I think it is the perfect Taylor Swift album.
And I
And
think that's like that for a lot of people, to be
yeah,
honest with you. I
I
think it's a
think
lot of people's stan album.
yes, definitely. I think because the thing that I've always loved about Red is that if anyone wants to know what Taylor Swift is about and what kind of music she makes, I think Red is the album because every kind of type of Taylor Swift song is on there. Sad songs, happy songs, pop songs, country songs, everything is on there. All the kind of feelings. And I think Red is such a kind of mosaic of all the best bits of Taylor Swift's kind of music and discography. So I think that's why lots of people love Red. But anyways, the rollout it was interesting because obviously we'd had the Fearless rollout and it felt like it was such a long wait, having to wait months and months after being told the album cover. But then the TikToks and the kind of guessing the vault, the jumbled up letters that came out of the vault, and then all of the kind of interviews, performances. I really, really liked the kind of promotion for Red, and it felt a bit mad. It was like within the space of a week, we'd had like a film, performance, interviews. It was all like whoa, 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 trying to keep up with it all. But it was really good fun, and I really, really enjoyed that release week.
So speaking about the cover of Red and speaking about the cover of Fearless. So with Fearless, we said, we were well, at least I was kind of apprehensive. However, with Red, I don't know about you, but for me, I instantly loved it. That cover for Red, the ring, the background to it, it really, again, captured the essence for me of the original, but enhanced on it.
Again, upon first kind of seeing, I was absolutely obsessed with it. I loved it, and like I said, as much as Red has always been my favorite album, I've always felt like, considering the Red has such an amazing photo shoot and is my favorite photo shoot, that the album isn't one of the best photos from the photo shoot. And I do love the Red album cover. I've kind of grown up with it, but the Taylor's version I think, is so much better. And yeah, it catches the essence of the kind of shadow across her face, the ring, the hat I really loved, and having the car and all the background. It feels like autumn. It feels like Red, and yeah, I think that Taylor did an amazing job of kind of encapsulating that. And yeah, I did see obviously a lot of the controversies over the Fearless and Red albums kind of being Evermore outtakes, and obviously two of the kind of Fearless Taylor's version outtakes were then used as Evermore covers
Hmm.
for the digital version, the digitally signed versions, which was quite interesting. And then obviously for the kind of Spotify canvases, the Red photo shoot was used as well. And I think that it was more that it was to kind of hint. It was kind of an Easter egg that we didn't even really know about. Rather than
Hmm.
necessarily an Evermore outtake, because the essence of the Red photo shoot is very different to the Evermore photo shoot. It's
Agree
just
with
more
that.
that it was done at a similar time. And obviously the Entertainment Weekly photo shoot as well of Taylor up against the kind of in the like kind of a fluffy brown bear kind of coat was also used for the Red photo shoot as well. So it is interesting how there was a bit of a crossover. But no, I really, really love the Red Taylor's version cover. Really, really love it. It's out of the two that we've got so far, Red is definitely my favorite.
The release of Red went really well. Of course, third time in under 2 years that Taylor was at number one on the Billboard 200 and the Billboard 100 at the same time, which is amazing. It's the third time for Taylor and the third time ever. So again, it went incredibly well. And of course, All Too Well 10-minute version did amazingly. It was at number one and it was loved by the fans. The excitement for All Too Well 10-minute version and the love that has come for it is just incredible to see.
It is amazing how like that All Too Well has kind of become the single from Red. I think it's interesting how like we discussed previously in a previous episode about how kind of mad the kind of love for All Too Well has gone, and over the years has just grown and grown and grown. And with the release of the 10-minute version, it's almost like one of Taylor's biggest songs ever.
Yeah.
It's crazy that it streams kind of a beating like songs like Shake It Off and We're Never Ever Getting Back Together. That was the song that I expected to be the single from Red Taylor's version, because obviously it was the single for Red. But I'm really glad that All Too Well's kind of taken center stage, because it definitely deserves it. And obviously the 10-minute version, as we have discussed in previous episodes, is absolutely amazing. And I'm so glad that we got as part of Red Taylor's version. And obviously the Vault as well. The reason why Red did so well is because of people's nostalgia with the Red Album and how good the Red Album is, but also because those vault tracks were stellar.
They really were. The Red Vault is incredible, and we'll speak about it a bit more when we give out our Swiftly Spoken awards. But yeah, it was really built up. The excitement for it was built up amazingly, and it did not disappoint. It really established the re-recording project, and it was amazing to see how well received it's been. Not only have fans adored it and people have really been embracing it, but iHeartRadio recently announced that they would now, from now on, only be playing Taylor's versions of the older songs as they come out. So that is incredible to see, and I'm sure that Taylor was very happy to find that out.
Okay, so now we're going to discuss the songs that were released in 2021. Starting off with Willow, which was initially released in 2020, but it actually went #1 on the Billboard Adult Hot Airplay chart this April. And obviously, we also got Willow's 90s trend. So, how do you feel about Willow? We did discuss it briefly in the Evermore episode, but it's interesting that the single was still kind of being played on radio and had a lot of airplay even throughout 2021.
Willow reminds me of Delicate in how it is doing on adult pop radio. So Delicate was like a grower on adult radio, and it stayed on adult radio for such a long time. And Willow seems to be following that trend. So even though it's not like this massive thing that's everywhere, I think it did really well to be charting throughout this year. And I do think Willow was robbed of a nomination at the Grammys for sure, because it is such a good song.
Yeah, I totally agree. It has kind of got that slow undercover kind of hit element to it, a bit like you said with Delicate, where that kind of had a huge life of its own in a kind of under the radar almost like hit. And I think Willow's kind of the same, like you said with Delicate, is kind of following that trend. And yeah, I think that it was definitely robbed of more Grammy nominations or any Grammy nominations. Also this year, Taylor collabed with Big Red Machine, which is Aaron Dessner and Justin Vernon's band. So Taylor released 2 songs with Big Red Machine. So the initial, which was the single for their album, How Long Do You Think It's Gonna Last, was Renegade. How do we feel about Renegade? Did you really like Renegade? What's your opinions on it, initial and now?
I love Renegade. It's one of my favorite songs that Taylor released this year. It reminds me a lot of Evermore and Folklore. It's just basically a song that felt like it didn't make it onto one of those albums, that fits really well on How Long Do You Think It's Gonna Last, and it's just a continuation of that sound. So really enjoyed it, and it was nice to have another collaboration of Taylor with Aaron and Justin. How did you feel about it?
Yes, no, I also really like Renegade. And yeah, it almost felt like a vault song off of Evermore or Folklore.
Yeah.
And it kind of just felt like a Taylor song, really, because obviously Taylor sings the majority of the song, and Justin kind of comes in only really on the kind of last chorus towards the second half of the song. So yeah, I really, really like Renegade, really like its lyrics and its message. And yeah, no, I was really happy to get that and a kind of continuation of the kind of Evermore Folklore sound. So as well as Renegade, like I said, we also got Birch, which was another song that Taylor did with Big Red Machine. What's your opinions on Birch? Obviously, Birch, Taylor isn't featured, doesn't sing as much of the song in comparison to Renegade, but obviously it's still a collaboration. So how do you feel about it?
Is much more of Big Red Machine's sound, if I'm explaining myself. So as you said, Taylor isn't as prominent in this song. She's more like a background vocalist in a way, and then contributes here and there. But it's definitely different in sound to Renegade. I much prefer Renegade personally, but it's still an interesting song, and again, a nice continuation to Evermore and Folklore on How Long Do You Think It's Gonna Last. But this one tilting more towards Big Red Machine sound than Taylor's.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think this one has the kind of more experimental Big Red Machine sound, whereas Renegade kind of emulates the kind of Evermore kind of sound. I compare the two. Renegade definitely is the standout. I don't really go back to Birch that much and listen to it purely because it doesn't, like I said, doesn't have that kind of, doesn't feel like a Taylor song in comparison to Renegade. But it's still definitely a good mention.
I feel that she was much more involved in the lyrics and writing of Renegade than she was for Birch.
Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, so another song that we got this year was Wildest Dreams, Taylor's version, and we actually got this song after it went viral on TikTok. So there was lots of TikToks being made with Wildest Dreams, obviously the original version that was released in 2014, and Taylor decided that rather than that version go viral and get loads of streams, that she would release her version. Obviously, we had heard snippets of this version from the Spirit Untamed movie, but we finally got to hear the entire track, and it was released as a single. So, how do you feel about Wildest Dreams Taylor's version? Does it sound like the original? Is it better than the original? What do you think?
Oh, I loved it. It's interesting how there's some songs that are ready to go, if you know what I mean. There's some songs that are in the back burner, already been re-recorded, and obviously Wildest Dreams was one of them, and she was able to release it and make the most of that viral moment on TikTok, which went absolutely crazy after she put out her own version of it and made that TikTok with it. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it had as much magic as the original did. How about you?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I really, really love Taylor's version of Wildest Dreams, and it was really nice that she could just kind of drop it, because I was kind of like, whoa, it was madness that she'd announced Red, but obviously we were kind of waiting for it. But then we were getting a 1989 single, but we'd had no announcement of 1989. It was all a bit mad, but it was really, really fun that she can just drop songs. And it's interesting because obviously recently Enchanted has been going viral on TikTok, and
Yes,
she hasn't dropped that. So is that a sign that maybe Enchanted that Speak Now isn't recorded yet, or maybe she's holding off on it because
that's
maybe something is
interesting.
coming? But it is really interesting that with Wildest Dreams, she just drop it so that her version would then go viral rather than the original. But with Enchanted, obviously that song has gone just as viral as Wildest Dreams, but she hasn't dropped it. And yeah, is that a sign that it isn't ready, or that something is coming and maybe she doesn't want to then drop it, too early into something or too close to something else coming out? But obviously that's a whole different topic. But no, Wildest Dreams, Taylor's version, I really love, and in comparison to the original, it definitely stands up to it and sounds just as good, if not even better. So another song that we got at the start of the year was Gasoline remix with Haim. So this song was originally on Haim's Women in Music Part 3 album, and then they later released the album again with two extra collaborations on it. So one was with Thundercat, and that was their song 3 a.m. And then the other was obviously with Taylor on Gasoline. And Taylor sings on one of the verses, and obviously is kind of backing and vocals on the chorus. And then she adds extra stuff and extra lyrics to the bridge. So how did you feel about Gasoline? It was kind of a bit of a shock after we just got a Haim collab on Evermore to then get another one so quickly on. But what was your opinion on it?
Yes, that's totally right. It was really, really strange to get such a quick second collab, even though this was more of a remix. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I loved her additions to it, and it was nice to hear them. But they both had their moments, whereas in Evermore, as we've discussed, it was more of a Taylor song with, backing vocals.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. This song definitely felt more like a collab, even though, yeah, it's deemed a remix. Than the Evermore, No Body, No Crime. And yeah, no, I was really glad to get Gasoline, and I really love the kind of striker match lyrics that Taylor added to the chorus. She definitely added something to the song. And yeah, no, I really, really love Gasoline, and it's definitely a standout track from this year. Okay, so another song that Taylor released this year was Christmas Tree Farm Old Timely version, which was released exclusively on Amazon Music. If you would like to hear us talking about this version and also Christmas Tree Farm in general, make sure you go back and listen to our previous episode. Another song that was released this year was the Lakes orchestral version for Folklore's Anniversary, and this was kind of the original sound that the Lakes had before Taylor kind of told Jack to tame down the orchestral elements. So what's your opinion on the Lakes orchestral version? Is it better than the original? Is this version better?
In my opinion, I definitely think that she did the right thing in asking him to kind of like pull it back on the orchestral elements, because they are a bit overwhelming at times, though that's not to say that it's not, a beautiful sound.
So obviously upon Folklore's Anniversary, we got the Lakes orchestral version, but unfortunately for Evermore's Anniversary, we never really got anything. Taylor never even posted anything on any of her social media to celebrate the anniversary, but thankfully we did get a snippet of Taylor and Aaron performing Champagne Problems in Taylor's house while trying on outfits for the I Bet You Think About Me music video. And as we discussed in our Evermore episode, this kind of snippet of Champagne Problems was absolutely gorgeous, with Taylor in the wedding dress and Aaron on piano. And even though obviously this is not necessarily a song in comparison to the previous ones we've mentioned, it was still really nice to get that, and definitely makes me want an Evermore Long Pondy kind of session.
As we discussed, it kind of just made me really want that Evermore Long Pond session, which sadly I don't think is coming anymore. I had hope for it all year, which is something that because we've discussed behind the scenes, but at least we got something, and it was very beautiful. In terms of music videos this year, Taylor only really released one that we can consider a proper music video, which is I Bet You Think About Me. Then, of course, we got the All Too Well 10-minute version short film, which again, I kind of consider more a short film than a music video per se, because we have the whole acted sequence in the middle going on and the two actors that are involved in it, Sadie and Dylan. So it was interesting to see how we didn't get any music videos at all for the Fearless re-recording. We only got lyric videos. But then for Red, Taylor went all out and promoted it by making 2 music videos, or 1 short film and 1 music video. This year, we also didn't really get many performances, but the ones that we did get were quite standout performances. So back at the beginning of this year, we got a Grammy performance where Taylor did a mashup of Cardigan, Willow, and August, which was absolutely amazing. We've mentioned this again previously, that Willow version from the Grammy performance was
Yes.
just absolutely amazing. If there's ever a full version of it, I would be so happy. But in general, the performance was absolutely incredible. Aaron and Jack were both there playing instruments, so it was amazing. I think it was a real standout moment from the Grammys this year.
Yeah, it definitely felt like a really kind of collaborative performance with Aaron and Jack. And obviously the set was gorgeous with the kind of moss roof and the house, and then the lights all in the kind of grass. I just thought it was a really, really cool performance, and yeah, definitely a standout from this year and a really good kind of start to the year.
Then we didn't get any other performances until late October, when Taylor did a cover of Will You Love Me Tomorrow to induct, or to celebrate the induction of Carole King to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for the second time. So it was a really pretty cover. It was lovely to see how emotional Carole was at seeing Taylor cover the song. And as she always does, she gave it her own spin and she looked amazing. Did you like this cover?
Yeah, no, I think Taylor always does an amazing job covering songs and making them still feel like the original, but putting a new kind of spin on them. You know, they still have the essence and the kind of. She doesn't change them so they're unrecognizable, but then she changes them so that they feel like Taylor Swift songs. And I think she did a really, really good job of Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow. And yeah, she looked amazing. The performance was really cool. Her vocals were incredible. And it was nice to kind of see Taylor performing again, because obviously we hadn't really seen her since the Grammys.
Finally, this year, we had the acoustic performance that was given at the premiere of the short film, and then, of course, that iconic All Too Well performance at SNL, which again, we've spoken about in our All Too Well episode. If you want to see our thoughts on that, you can head over to there. So finally, we wanted to also give a mention to all of Taylor's notable awards and amazing mentions that she's had throughout this year. This year, she's been given some really, really cool awards. So firstly, she started off the year by winning that coveted Grammy Album of the Year award. It made her the first woman to have ever won Album of the Year at the Grammys 3 times. Obviously, her first being for Fearless, her second being from 1989, and her third, of course, Folklore. And this means that she is the 4th person in history to have won this award 3 times. She now joins the likes of Frank Sinatra, Stevie Wonder, and Paul Simon with this feat. So it's absolutely incredible that she started off her year with this.
Yeah, I think it was definitely a good kind of omen for the year and a good start to the year to win the award of the kind of, that is the music award that everyone wants to win, Album of the Year. So I'm so glad, as we've mentioned before, that Folklore got that win, and that Taylor has kind of again broken more records by being the first female to win it 3 times. So yeah, that was definitely a great start to the year. Taylor looked amazing at the Grammys. And yeah, it was just a really kind of lovely night, like we said, with the performance and then the win. It was thoroughly enjoyable.
She was then given the Global Icon Award at the Brit Awards, which again is quite a coveted award, which was very important because she was the first ever female to be given this award and also the first ever non-British person. So a very important title.
I was really happy that Taylor kind of got given the Global Icon Award. One, because obviously she deserves it, and two, again, it was nice to see Taylor. We hadn't seen her at an award show since the Grammys, and she looked amazing in her kind of outfit. And obviously there was all the discussion of, is she teasing Red? Is she teasing 1989? Because obviously the kind of crop top was very 1989, but her hair obviously was so very Red era, kind of reminiscent of the Red era. And obviously Taylor's hair was really long, which is the first time we kind of seen it like that in a while. So no, it was really, the Brit Awards Global Icon Award was really exciting. Obviously she was there with Haim and her publicist Tree, so it just kind of had a really nice feel about it. And the same with the Grammys this year. It kind of there was just this kind of really nice collaborative feel about the Grammys and a really nice kind of collaborative feel about the Brit Awards this year. So I'm glad that Taylor attended both of them.
Then another coveted award that she was given this year was the NMPA Songwriter Icon Award. Again, very deserved. Her songwriting many times goes under the radar crazily, strangely, especially at the Grammys with the Song of the Year nominations. I'm glad that she was given this amazing award as well for her songwriting in specific.
And I think this type of award is the awards that Taylor really loves, because songwriting is her thing. You know, that is what makes Taylor Swift Taylor Swift, is her amazing songwriting. So I think that this kind of recognition would have been something that she really, really valued and really appreciated. So yeah, I'm really glad that Taylor's finally starting to be recognized for her songwriting. She's always been an amazing songwriter ever since kind of her debut, but it's only really upon the release of Folklore and Evermore that people have actually recognized it, and not just and you know, her songwriting is so unique in comparison to most artists out there. I don't think many artists could write All Too Well 10-minute version. So no, I'm really glad that Taylor was kind of recognized this year for that.
She also won many other things. Billboard Music Awards, she got 2 Top 200 Artist and Top Female Artist. American Music Awards, she won the Favorite Pop Rock Female Artist. At the iHeart Awards, she also won for Folklore as Pop Album of the Year. And finally, at the MTV EMAs, which are the European Music Awards, Taylor got the Best US Act Award. So once again, really showing that she isn't just popular in America, but she's also being recognized, you know, all over the world, in this case in Europe, at number 4 with Evermore, and she is at number 1 for the top album sales. Billboard also named her the greatest pop star of 2021, and she was also in the Forbes list as one of the world's most powerful women in 2021. So again, many, many amazing recognitions this year.
Also in 2021, Taylor broke many Guinness World Records, some of which we'll list now. She also broke the record for the longest song to reach number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 with All Too Well 10-minute version, which actually beat American Pie. Taylor also broke the record for most simultaneous US Hot 100 new entries and most simultaneous US Hot 100 entries by a female.
So now we are heading into the portion of this episode where we give out the Swiftly Spoken Awards. So these awards were voted by you over on our Instagram, which is at Swiftly Spoken Podcast. And we want to thank you all for voting. It was really interesting to see your thoughts. In some cases, we are also going to be given our own winner.
Okay, so our first award was for Album of the Year, and the two competitors were Red, Taylor's version, and Fearless, Taylor's version. So our listeners over on our Instagram voted for Red as the winner with a 95% score. I definitely think that Red deserves Album of the Year.
The next award is for Best Album Vault in general. So again, the 2 nominees were Red and Fearless. And once again, you guys voted for Red to win. This is something that we've also discussed previously. I think it's mainly because, as we said, Red's vault was really, really new. We didn't get any songs prior to the album's release. It had more tracks to it. It had a collaboration more on it. So it felt newer than Fearless's, which in that album's case, we kind of did know of the Vault songs before its release.
I think obviously with Red's kind of Vault, we had heard Better Man and Babe before, obviously in different kind of versions and formats with different people singing them, but they were the only ones that we'd ever really heard. Obviously none of the vaulted tracks for Taylor's version of Red were ever dropped before the album came out, unlike with Fearless. Obviously a lot of the songs we had heard demo, unreleased versions of, or with You All Over Me and Mr. Perfectly Fine, they were released before the album came out. So I think with Red, the reason that maybe a lot of people prefer it is, one, because the vault is incredible on Red, like every one of those songs is amazing, but also because they were so exciting, because they were all new, all fresh. You know, every single one was just exciting because we had never heard any of them before, whereas with Fearless we had either heard them in different formats or had actually heard them, the Taylor's versions of them. So no, Red is definitely a deserved winner. Okay, so our next award is for Best from the Vault from the Fearless album. So our listeners decided that Mr. Perfectly Fine was the best song from Fearless.
It's interesting to see how Mr. Perfectly Fine was chosen. It was like the second single, so to speak, from Fearless, Taylor's version. And also, it's a song that none of us had ever heard before. There wasn't a demo version of it in circulation.
So we also wanted to mention as well our possible winner, because as much as we do love Mr. Perfectly Fine, both of us agreed on our winner, which is Don't You. So that is our personal winner from the Fearless Vault, and in our opinion, the best one. But our listeners over on Instagram, you guys voted for Mr. Perfectly Fine.
So next, following those lines, we have best song from the Red Vault. So in this case, you guys voted for Forever Winter. So this was a really voted for song. A lot of people really seem to enjoy
Yes.
Forever Winter.
I was surprised really, because I hadn't realized that Forever Winter was so loved on the Vault, because the Vault has so many standout amazing tracks. So it's interesting that Forever Winter was the one that you guys really love.
Once again, wanted to give a little shout out to our own personal favorite, which again we discussed.
Yes, Better Man. I think it was more me that took that wanted to give that Better
A
Man that
special
title.
mention, yeah.
I absolutely love Better Man. I've always loved it ever since the Little Big Town version, and I think that's why Red Taylor's version is now my favorite album of all time, because any album that has Better Man, Come Back Be Here, or All Too Well 10-minute version will be my favorite album no matter what. So I had to give Better Man the best Vault from Red. So that is our pick. But you guys over on Instagram voted for Forever Winter. Okay, so talking about songs and favorite songs, our next award is for Song of the Year, and this one we didn't put out a voting for because this one was going to win no matter what, and that is All Too Well 10-minute version. Like we have said in previous episodes, we are so glad that we finally have this version, have the version of All Too Well, the version that we should have had back in 2012, and the version that we've been desperately waiting for. And yeah, this version is, in my opinion, my favorite Taylor Swift track of all time. I have not stopped listening to it since it came out. So yeah, it definitely deserves the Song of the Year.
The next award is for the most faithful album to the original. So again, the nominees are obviously Red Taylor's version and Fearless Taylor's version. Fearless won with 70% of you guys voting for it. So I do think this was a clear winner. It's something that we discussed previously as well. We wanted to see how people felt about these recreations and how they felt, if they felt that they were true to the original or if they had some changes. We both discussed that for us, Fearless is more faithful to the original than Red. Not saying that Red is bad in any way. This is something that we've previously discussed. There are some changes, but yeah, Fearless deserved winner.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think Fearless is the deserved winner. Even though Red, like I said, sounds just like the original Red with the changes for like Girl at Home, and then some of the Vault tracks that maybe sound a bit more. Our listeners have voted for Fearless as the winner.
And it's very interesting to see as well, because Fearless was obviously recorded originally when she was much younger than Red. So to be able to emulate so amazingly her younger self's voice and her younger self singing is amazing. So this is really tipping our hat to Taylor, how she could recreate that so well.
Okay, so the next award is for Favourite Performance of 2021, and you guys voted for the All Too Well 10-minute version SNL performance as your winner. But interestingly, the votes were very, very close, and the Grammy performance nearly topped it, but All Too Well 10-minute version SNL performance won.
Next award voted by you guys was the favorite collaboration of the year, and we had a tie. So you both voted for Renegade and Nothing New between Taylor and Phoebe Bridgers. So two amazing tracks from this year, and I again think well deserved. Were there any collaborations that you wanted to win, Cameron?
I do love That's When, I can't lie. I really love That's When. I think Keith and Taylor did an amazing job. But Renegade and Nothing New are definitely two standout tracks. Nothing New I absolutely love, and Renegade really kind of was, it was the kind of, yeah, I listened to a lot during the start of the year and kind of over summer. So yeah, I'm glad that people really love that song, even now after all the new songs that we've had and all the new collaborations since. But yeah, I do love That's When, and I would probably put that up with those two. Okay, so the next award is for favourite non-album single, and there was a lot to pick from Christmas Tree Farm, Wildest Dreams, Renegade, Birch, Gasoline, but in the end you guys decided that Wildest Dreams Taylor's version was your winner. And both of us agree that this is the deserved winner. As we'd mentioned earlier, Wildest Dreams Taylor's version was so cool that we got that song this year, and Taylor did an amazing job of recreating the song. But yeah, do you think that that's the deserved winner? Is there any other non-album singles that you think are the best of the year?
I definitely think Wildest Dreams deserved it, and it just goes to show how excited people are. But I would like to make a small mention to Christmas Tree Farm, though we've already discussed it in length in our last episode. But that Christmas Tree Farm old-timey version is amazing and doesn't get enough love, I think. Finally, the final award is for your favorite Swiftly Spoken episode. So we wanted to say a big thank you to everyone who voted, and you guys mentioned basically all of our episodes. So we were so happy to see that, and we're really pleased that you're enjoying this. We really enjoy doing it. Yeah, thank you to all of you. However, we have to crown a winner, and the winner was our latest Evermore episode.
Yes, no, I'm really it was really nice to see all of your comments and that everyone really loved all of our episodes, and we really love recording each episode. But Evermore was definitely a standout for me. I thoroughly enjoyed kind of delving back into Evermore and looking back on it and exploring all the songs and all the themes and having a proper discussion about it. So no, for me, Evermore was definitely my favorite. So I'm glad that our listeners also agreed. But yeah, thanks again, because we do thoroughly enjoy creating this podcast, and we're really glad that you guys are loving all of the episodes.
So thank you once again for all of your comments and all of your kind words, and you guys listening and even being interested in this podcast. In terms of what we can expect next from Taylor, there's two main things on the table, I think. Either re-recordings or possibly some different project like an album perhaps. So Cameron, what are your thoughts? Re-recording, album, something else?
I personally don't feel like she'll do an album. I think it would be quite confusing in the kind of re-recording era as such we're in to then drop an actual album. I think people would be like, wait, is this a re-recorded one or is this a new one? So I
Right.
think that she's going to stick to the re-recording as of now. So I personally feel like late winter, spring, we'll get Speak Now, and then kind of summer, we'll get 1989, because they're the two that Taylor has really kind of teased. Obviously
Interesting, yeah.
she's been teasing 1989 before
For
even
a
she
while now.
announced the Red album, but now obviously she's been teasing kind of Speak Now, especially with the kind of on her store having the £20 10 price for the signed CD and it being in purple, and then obviously for the signed Fearless CDs they were £19.89. So there's definitely been a lot of teasing of Speak Now and 1989, and personally, if I was to guess, they're the two that I expect next. Speak Now next, and then 1989 a little bit later in summer.
Yep, I have to say I agree with you. I also think that that order is probably the one that's going to happen. 1989 being the second half of the year, whereas for Speak Now, the first half. I do think an interesting thing that you previously mentioned is that 1989 does seem to be more prepared already, as we saw through that Wildest Dreams release, whereas Speak Now, either she didn't have it completely prepared at that point or she didn't want to release the Enchanted in the same Enchanted Taylor's version in the same way as she did with Wildest Dreams. So that's also quite an interesting thing to have observed.
Yeah, no, I think it is interesting that I think, to be fair, 1989 has been prepared for quite a while. I think that the reason that Red maybe took a long time was because they really wanted all the vinyl and all the physical copies to be out on the day that the album came out, whereas obviously with kind of Folklore, Evermore and Fearless Taylor's version, they've all come out months later, which then means that you're having to promote an album that you've kind of already promoted, and then you're delaying, you know, other things because it's hard to promote a new album if you're trying to promote an old one with vinyl. So I think that that was possibly one of the reasons why Red was pushed back, and then obviously it was pulled forward because of Adele releasing the week that Red was initially intended for. So it is interesting that that we haven't had anything from Speak Now, even though one of the songs has gone just as viral as Wildest Dreams did. So I do think that 1989 has been ready for quite a while, especially with the fact that we got Wildest Dreams as a teaser for the Spirit Untamed film months and months and months before we even got obviously the actual song itself, after the TikTok kind of after it went viral on TikTok. So no, I am intrigued to see what is coming next, and it's interesting to see, or it's interesting, it would be interesting to know if Speak Now is ready, or if 1989 is even ready, because obviously this is all speculative, but those are definitely the two that I'm thinking coming next.
Of course, with Taylor, you never know. She might suddenly surprise us with the debut album suddenly.
Yes, it could. She could throw it left of field. We could get anything. We could just get a whole, like you mentioned, a whole new album. Maybe, you never know.
Again, interesting to see how the re-recordings go, and also keep up with us because I'm sure that we will soon be also releasing our own episodes about what we can expect from these re-recordings and what we can expect from these re-recordings vaults. Another interesting rumored project that is coming up in this next year is a possible Ed Sheeran remix. So Ed Sheeran recently released his album Equals, and on the album there is a song called The Joker and the Queen. Now, he has been teasing for a while that this song is going to have a remix with an American artist, and in the MV for Overpass Graffiti, which was one of the singles from Equals, Ed was wearing a leather jacket, and on the back was a patch with Taylor's name on. Kind of a nod to Taylor in of itself because it's an Easter egg, and it could be an Easter egg for Taylor being the American artist in question that will be on the remix of this song. It seems to be lining up that way because he recently performed The Joker and the Queen at the Royal Variety Show in England, and it seems to be very well received. The song seems to be very well received in England, and it could have the potential to become something like the next thinking out loud perfect single from Ed. I think that a Taylor remix to this song would definitely breathe new life in it, especially if she was able to contribute a verse to it. But how would you feel about this remix?
I'm just never too sure because obviously I remember when Katy Perry was releasing Daisies and there was this whole thing of was that there was going to be that Taylor was featured on it and she was asked a lot and she was just like, you have to listen, and it's almost like they never say no or yes even when they know it's a no, because then people will still listen and it's still then just talked about excessively. So I'm not too sure about this, but the patch on the back of Ed's jacket in the music video. So I think that it is very possible. Obviously, Ed and Taylor have collabed a lot. This would be the third time that they have a kind of collaboration together. A fourth time, sorry. So no, I'm just never too sure about these, and I never kind of believe it until it's confirmed.
Right.
But we'll see if maybe he drops more. He might possibly drop more hints and more teasing as the kind of 2022 kind of progresses. So we'll see whether he does do that. But at the moment, I'm still on the fence about it because there's always so many rumors of possible collabs that it's hard to keep up. But this one does seem more legitimate and seems like it has more kind of foundation and more real than kind of the more kind of fantasized remixes that are thrown about every so often, with the Jonas Brothers remix that was the Jonas Brothers collab that was apparently happening, which obviously never happened.
That's true. Yeah, that was a big thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so it is interesting that these things do. So I'm one of those people that's like, I don't believe it until Taylor says it's happening. So that's where
sure.
that's my where I'm standing at the moment with it.
For sure, I agree with you, to be honest. That Jonas Brothers thing I'd completely forgotten about. I'm only swaying towards a yes because of that patch.
Yeah.
And how random it would be, didn't mean anything. And also because Taylor and Ed are very good friends, and it kind of seems more feasible than what the Jonas Brothers were at
Oh
that
yeah,
point.
definitely. Yeah, definitely. I do feel like it does seem more realistic, like I said, especially with the patch, especially with the fact that they are really good friends. But I would just be surprised that he would constantly refer to her as an American, artist. You know what I mean? I would maybe
Yeah.
think that he'd be like, oh, I've got one of my friends or one of my close collaborators on it. I don't know. Well, I guess we'll find out
Yeah,
hopefully
we'll
in
wait and
2022.
see. Yeah, we'll wait and see. And as always, if it does come to be a thing, we will give you the rundown and run through it all.
Okay, so also in 2022, we have a couple of awards that Taylor is nominated for. So first is the 2022 Grammys, and Evermore, as we've previously mentioned in our Evermore episode, is nominated for Album of the Year. But also Taylor is nominated for International Artist at the Brit Awards. How do you feel about the chances? Like we said with Evermore, we're not too sure because of the previous Folklore win, but do you think Taylor's possibly going to win for International Artist at the Brits?
I think there is a big possibility for next year. There are some contenders in there that could easily also get it. Obviously, Olivia Rodrigo is in there, who's become quite a sensation in this last year. I'm not sure, really. How about you? I mean, you're in England, so how do you feel?
Yeah, no, I think that the Red kind of release has gone mad here. So I definitely
Okay.
think Taylor is definitely one of the strong contenders. But yeah, people like Olivia Rodrigo are definitely a strong competition. But I think that Taylor's got just as much chance as anyone else. I think that this year she's definitely kind of blown up again in the UK. And
Brilliant.
people really, really went mad for Red. And recently I even heard All Too Well, not the full 10-minute or the full 5-minute, about a 3-minute version on Radio 1, which was absolutely mad to hear. Obviously, Taylor's version of All Too Well. To hear that on the radio was just insane. So I think that, yeah, the UK are really loving Taylor at the moment. So I definitely think that she's got a chance.
That's interesting. And also with that Ed Sheeran remix, that will push her over the edge.
The Ed remix will definitely, hopefully, maybe contribute to her winning this award. Hopefully. Even more reason to win it, as if there isn't enough anyway.
So this concludes our last episode of 2021. So we just wanted to give all of you a big thank you for listening. We launched the podcast this year. It was something that we had in mind for a very long time, and we are very, very happy that it has been received how it's been received. So we would like to wish you all a very happy new year, and there is lots coming soon. We are preparing a lot of fun episodes, so make sure you follow us over on Instagram at Swiftly Spoken Podcast for updates, and also on YouTube you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, Swiftly Spoken Podcast, and if not, you can always listen to our episodes on Apple or Spotify.